Running word from the Ditmas section of the Flatbush neighborhood, Brooklyn, in the city of New York. It's Monday, the 6th day of May, 2024. Flashback, I guess. State of the Union. Maybe it's February of 2021. I don't know. Let's find out.
Thanks so much for streaming with us. We are here in Washington, D.C. tonight ahead of a consequential night for the President of the United States. In about 60 minutes, President Joe Biden will give his first State of the Union address, a speech historically used to tout successes. It comes, though, at a time of national and global crisis. Our country faces a 40-year high inflation rate with surging gas prices and an ongoing supply chain issue. Today on Wall Street, all of the markets lost ground. Oil prices above $100 a barrel, the highest level since 2014. Life beyond a pandemic, the White House restructuring its COVID strategy, hoping to move Americans toward normalcy as a new virus strain now accounts for nearly 75% of new cases. And Russia's unprovoked war on Ukraine. The Kremlin denies civilians have become a target, but some horrifying images tell a rather different story. Surveillance cameras captured this strike on the regional state administration, a ball of fire coming from what's known as Freedom Square. The Ukrainian government says at least 350 people are dead and more than 1,600 hurt. A senior administration official tells ABC News Russia appears to be committed to a devastating attack on Ukraine. And Matt Gutman now joins us from the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Matt, so many desperately trying to leave that nation and so many more gearing up for a serious fight ahead against the Russians.
Lindsay, I just spoke to a UN official who said that this is unprecedented. We haven't seen this many people fleeing a country at war this fast in decades, possibly since World War II. Now, in the macro, they are estimating that we might see about 4 million refugees fleeing Ukraine who are going to need humanitarian.
So this is State of the Union 2022. Yeah. 2022. I'll be curious to see what the date of the actual address is. They haven't really stated yet. So let's find out. Flashback, throwback. Thanks, ABC News Live. United States of America, ABC News, not ABC out of Australia.
Humanitarian assistance. In addition to that, they expect another 12 million internally displaced people who are going to have trouble. They're going to need relief and aid themselves. So we're talking about 16 million people. That's the macro. On the
16 million at the time of the State of the Union in 2022? 16 million people displaced already? I thought the aggression had just started. Really?
Micro, we've seen these images of mothers saying goodbye to their sons, just smoothing their jackets, not knowing when they're going to see them again. Husbands and wives saying farewell at the borders, kissing each other as if it's the last time they're ever going to see each other. These very moving images all over the country. Now, that is...
Are you kidding me? Just like the stories out of the BBC. Oh yeah, when the children had to flee Europe and go to London. Same story. It's poetic, actually. It's quite touching.
An image that we're seeing of mothers and children leaving, but this is not a nation of victims, and there are a lot of people who are staying, and a lot of women themselves as well. One of the things that we've been seeing...
A nation of aggressors, a nation of liars, a nation of deceivers, a nation of manipulators, a nation of extortionists, a nation of violence mongers, a nation of death squads and death camps, and murderous actions towards men, women, and children of all ages, exporting tyranny around the world. That's what they are. A nation of that.
Is President Zelensky over the past several days calling on these civil...
Yeah, him. The chief of all of that. Yeah. The chief of all of that. He is the president of the nation. So he's the chief responsible for all of what I just said. He is. Voldemort Zelensky. Not to be confused with Voldemort of, well, who I'm, J.J. Rowling. Yeah.
Civil defense committees to get out in the streets, to take up arms, to prepare Molotov cocktails, blockade the roads, and they are doing that. And even though Zelensky hasn't said this specifically, it looks like he's preparing for total war. That is, every available resource, every available person will be thrown into this conflict, and we're seeing that. We talked...
Like I said, the chief, Voldemort Zelensky. Yes. Despicable. Disgusting. A war criminal. Universal. Shouldn't be a safe place for him anywhere in the world, let alone in the United States of America. Oh. Don't think we don't know he's here. In the United States of America. Voldemort Zelensky. Yeah, don't think we don't know. Yeah, we know he is. Him and his ambassador. Of course we know.
To a woman who plays the bandura professionally as sort of a lute/harp. And, she's a professional musician. Now she's volunteering at the train station helping refugees get on board. And then
they're talking about a lute/harp, people playing harps at the... Come on. Oh, let's talk about harp playing at the... Oh my gosh, isn't that so romantic? Harp playing.
Evening, she goes and stitches bulletproof vests. Microbreweries are now making thousands of Molotov cocktails. We are seeing a nation prepare itself for a...
Microbreweries converted to Molotov cocktail factories. Where's the billions of dollars of aid that had already been provided? Well, what happened to all that money? What was that being used for? The first year of the Biden administration. We're 1 year into the Biden administration. What happened to all the military aid and equipment and hardware? Oh, really?
Possible insurgency, making a Russian invasion here very, very painful if it indeed does happen and continues.
Russian meaning the Russians of Ukraine, not Russians of the USSR or the Russian Federation. No, the Russians who live in the Russian ethnic sections of Ukraine. This is an ethnic cleansing internally of the country brought upon by the Ukrainians against the Russians. It's Ukrainians versus Russian Ukrainians. A civil war devastation mess. It never was the Russian Federation. They all know it too. What a horrible thing that has been done to the world. All the lies and the deceit.
Of the rest of the country, Lindsay.
And Matt, if I can just ask you to take your reporter hat off for a moment. I mean, you're a dad, your husband.
No, he doesn't get to take off his reporter hat, Lindsay. Come on, Lindsay. Oh, you look so innocent there. Said, oh, he looks so, oh, forlorn, forlorn. No, 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 Lord. How could you possibly be participating in this charade, this charlatan?
And you've been providing some really emotional, moving scenes. Anything in particular that has just touched you that you haven't been able?
The truth that he hasn't been able to report. Perpetuating a lie. That must be pretty tough. How about it? Must be pretty tough. Day in and day out, perpetuating a lie, a sleight of hand, a twist of tongues. Russians, to never say ethnic cleansing, you Russians within Ukrainian Russians, just perpetuating the lie of it all.
Share.
Tried to share as much as I can. I guess it's just the scale of it. You know, we've seen so much of it. And
A is for acting. A+ for acting. I don't even know if he's an actual reporter or just an actor. Probably an actor. I don't even know who all these people are anymore. They flooded the networks with so many new faces.
And there were times, especially at that border, the first day that we crossed in, where we saw just thousands of people slammed up against the border with Poland. And we're seeing these farewells.
Where they slammed up, bodies thrust against walls and murdered and killed, slammed up bodies. What does he mean? What does he mean? Death squad slamming bodies and murdering men, women, and children, slamming them. Is that what he means?
Husbands kissing their wives goodbye and holding their faces, and you know, their tears just sort of smudging together.
Oh my God. It's disgusting is what it is. It's absolutely disgusting. It's despicable. It's 2 years on now. 2 years this has gone on. Oh, the puppy dog eyes. Oh my gosh, it's so sweet, isn't it? Oh, look at his little puppy dog eyes. Oh yeah, little puppy dog eyes. Oh, isn't that sweet?
Your images personally, as you mentioned, and him saying goodbye to his children and after that, I'm never going to forget. They're indelible. They're seared in my memory. And we're seeing
indelibly seared in my memory, unwanted, unforgotten, always remembered, never to be forgotten. Oh my God. No Emmy Award for lies.
So much of them. So, you know, as a journalist, to some degree, I have to separate myself from that.
I guess he does have to separate himself up from being a journalist because he's not a journalist. He's an actor, a paid actor playing a role. He's not even a journalist. So he does have to. He's covering his ass, goes the way they talk about this. It's a strange kind of a language, but I've learned it really well after seeing it for 2 years myself. I can talk the same way they do now.
But, you know, seeing some of these images, my producer and I, Robert Zepeda, just sometimes couldn't help but cry. You have to feel a little bit of emotion, and you have to feel a lot of empathy when you're out here and seeing up to 7.
You know, tears are tears of joy, too. Laughing so hard at the fucking joke of it all, huh? That they just busting up, that it's so foolish, that all this lies going on. Nobody's really hurt, maybe. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. Who knows? Do you know where you're going to?
100,000 refugees going over a border in just a few days. Lindsay.
And Matt, well, thank you for all the reporting that you've been doing. Really appreciate it. And now let's bring in ABC's James Longman live in Moscow. James, President Biden in the weeks leading up to this war was clear about Putin's intentions and thought if he exposed them, perhaps the Russians wouldn't invade Ukraine. Clearly that did not happen. So what, if anything, could President Biden say tonight that could get the attention of Putin and Kremlin officials short of Ukraine and NATO agreeing to all of their terms?
Well, Lindsay, President Biden is now faced with a Russian adversary that it's always promised it wanted to be, the great counterbalance to what it sees as American hegemony. And we know what Putin wants. I mean, he won't say it in as many words, but he wants to create this kind of larger Russian empire with Ukraine and Belarus as vassal states. President Biden can't give him that. So tonight, what President Biden needs to do is double down on these sanctions. And I think that's what we're going to hear. We're going to hear that he's taking the fight to President Putin, because that seems to be the only thing that the Russian president understands. Tonight, the ruble is worth just a cent against the dollar. So the sanctions are already starting to hit Russia. But I think what we're going to hear from President Biden is that there's more of the same down the line. But I think really importantly, he's going to appeal to the Russian people to, as much as he can, get the message to them to say, this is not our doing, this is the doing of your president. Lindsay?
James, thank you so much. And our chief White House correspondent, Cecilia Vega, joins us. Cecilia, the White House has been warning Americans and the world about Russian intentions for weeks, but this unfolding humanitarian disaster and the war itself have complicated their plans for how President Biden will he address the nation tonight?
Yeah, Lindsay, this is going to be the top of his remarks, we're told, and we know that over the last few weeks, frankly, the White House has had to sort of restructure this speech in order to put much more of a focus on Ukraine. And in fact, I can tell you, because the White House just gave us some embargoed remarks that they've just listed, so I'm now allowed to tell you about them. We know that he is going to mention Vladimir Putin by name, and he's going to say that Putin's war was premeditated and unprovoked, that he rejected efforts at diplomacy. He's going to say that Putin was wrong and that we were ready. He's referring to NATO there. You're going to hear President Biden really focus on this effort that he has made.
No, I don't smoke it no more. I'm tired of waking up on the floor. Don't ask me, please, it only makes me sneeze. And then look at her. Oh, God. Oh, gosh, the horror of it all. Oh, Putin and the Russians and the poor Ukrainians. Oh, my God, the travesty of it all. Oh, my God, the crimes against humanity. It's awful. Oh, no, what shall we do? Lie. If anything, it's ethnic Russians in the eastern part of the country, under siege by Ukrainians who are on an ethnic cleansing of Russians. Because they are white Russians themselves, the Ukrainian Russians are, out to kill and murderously rape, pillage the other Russians, just like they did during World War II and just like they did during World War I. Yeah, Volodymyr Zelensky. Boy. God. Damn. And maybe all of that is not true either. Maybe it's just really about the takeover in the United States, the fall of the Democratic Republic, and the longest standing Democratic Republic in the world. Maybe that's what it's really about. Yeah, the takeover in this country in January 2021. Maybe. It just might be. And the siege of New York City, the Empire City and Empire State, it might be about that.
To unite allies. You've seen them unite around these historic sanctions. You're going to hear him talk about this theme of democracy versus Russian aggression. That's going to be a big part of this speech. But as I was saying, this really, they had to sort of revamp this. This is not necessarily the speech that President Biden wanted to give. It's the speech he has to give. Foreign policy is always part of these State of the Unions. But Lindsay, it's going to take a big role tonight.
Cecilia Vega, we will see you in just a little bit. And now let's bring in ABC's Chief Global Affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz. Martha, President Biden in many ways built the coalition responsible for some of the strongest sanctions that we've ever seen to punish Putin. But if the Russian president escalates this war because the risk of catastrophic global war, Biden's hands are somewhat tied, making his messaging tonight tricky.
It really is tricky, Lindsay. That's a really good point. He did bring to...
Maybe Biden's hands really are tied. Tied and bound and gagged of the takeover of our government by a radical leftist, Marxist, communist, fascist, some kind of nightmare. Maybe. Maybe. Just maybe.
Together, NATO, without question. I think part of bringing NATO together was sharing that intelligence, telling them every step of the way what was going to happen next, what they were seeing. It didn't stop any sort of invasion, but I do think that helped bring all of those countries together, and eventually they saw the invasion. They saw that U.S. intelligence in this case was correct. But I don't think President Biden, and certainly not the U.S. military, wants to do anything further in Ukraine. You've heard the president say again and again there will be no U.S. forces in Ukraine, and that is a no-fly zone as well. He's getting a lot of pressure from different areas of the country, from different areas of the world, to try to do more in Ukraine. So that's a tough message. That's exactly right, Lindsay.
Well, except that they just passed $75 billion supposedly for Ukraine, but we all know what happens to that money. It gets plowed into the U.S. economy. It doesn't even go to Ukraine. No. We know what happens to that money. It's just ridiculous 2 years on.
Martha Raddatz, our thanks to you. And tonight's State of the Union address comes as we're seeing skyrocketing inflation while we continue to climb out of the pandemic-driven downturn. We bring in ABC's Chief Business and Economics correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, for more. Good to see you as always, Rebecca. Of course, we've been talking about these consumer prices going to the highs that we haven't seen in 40 years. Inflation was soaring before the war in Ukraine.
They act like they long lost buddies and friends. Nobody knows any of these correspondents. I don't know them. I've never heard of them. 2 years on, I still don't know who any of them are. I don't know who this is either. Nope. I don't even see ABC anymore. I don't. Only ABC of Australia.
Give us a picture of where we are now and what we can expect moving forward.
Well, Lindsay, it's nice to see you as well. And prices have been continuing to climb really since the country has come out of lockdown in the pandemic. And in recent weeks, we've seen that major escalation in gasoline prices at gas stations across the country, from the gas station to the grocery store. In particular tonight, if you look at the national average, $3.62 nationwide. A lot of places paying more than that. But by comparison to a year ago, that means if you were going to fill up your tank, it would cost you about $52 today versus $40 a year ago. And in just the last couple of weeks, as oil prices have surged, in fact, today up 11%, above $100 a barrel for the first time since 2014, the first time in 7 years, we are seeing a handful of places seeing gigantic surges in just the last week in prices. Michigan and Indiana, according to Gas Buddy's Patrick DeHaan, have seen a price increase and will see a price increase this week of about 50 cents a gallon. And that, you feel that at the pump. You feel that in your budget. The average American family is spending about $276 more a month today than they did a year ago. Lindsay?
Rebecca Jarvis, thank you. And we know that President Biden has...
Oh, Jarvis. Is she related to the Jarvis Heart creator? Jarvis? The Jarvis Heart. I wonder if she's related to them. And since when is Gas Buddy some sort of reliable source? How about the Consumer Price Index? Gas Buddies? Is that somebody you run around and fart with or something? Your gas buddy?
plenty to address tonight. So what are the risks and rewards? Joining us now is ABC News contributor and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and former acting...
Oh my God. Oh my God. Paid contributors. Who are these two idiots? Yeah, stooges. A Democrat and a Republican. Two stooges.
Chair of the Democratic National Committee and ABC News contributor Donna Brazile. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah, like I said.
Donna, let's start with you.
Two stooges. Donna Brazile, liar, liar, pants on fire. Christie, liar, liar, pants on fire. They're not patriots. None of these people are. They've all been perpetuating this lie for 2 years on now. They never thought it would go this long. Now they're all stuck in a trap. How can they ever get out of it now? They can't. That's the problem. They're stuck.
What would it have to take for the president at the end of his speech for you to say he nailed it?
Well, first of all, he is the commander-in-chief. He's also the leader of the free world. So let's...
He's not the leader of the free world. And at the time of this broadcast, he isn't even the commander-in-chief. Coup d'etat has toppled the United States government. And that's what they're covering up from the American people. That's what they're covering up. That's what they continue to cover up. For 2 years on, keeping it from the American people.
Make sure that...
Donna Brazile, mud. Chris Christie, mud. Liars, cheaters, conceit, propagators, no redemption. They're not heroes. They're not patriots. They're nothing but liars.
He can unify not just the world, making sure that our European allies and NATO allies...
No one wants to come to the defense of the United States because we're horrendous. And all the murdering and marauding we've done around the world. That's what's taken so long, because nobody had come to our defense. Unless we capitulated all kinds of things. Blackmailed. Yes. Mostly the West Indies and Caribbean. Oh, they've been the biggest benefactors. Because Corinne LaPierre, I don't know if she's in the White House yet or not. She isn't. She's on her way. Miss Princess of the Caribbean, Corinne LaPierre, the Caribbean princess, the one who's like the master puppeteer who's out front, yeah, to make it look good to everybody. So she can speak to her people every day. So they see her face. Yes, I see her face. Corinne LaPierre, the face of our people, the Caribbean. Maybe Donna Brazile. Maybe it's her people too. It might be. Is she Caribbean? I want to be in America. Everything free in America.
And of course, the people of Ukraine will hear him. Let's also talk to the people of Russia, because they need to understand why the world is rallying against the actions of Mr. Putin. Back here at home.
She can't even say it. The actions of Mr. Putin. Because she knows it's not Mr. Putin. A 2-year fraud, 3-year fraud. It's 2024. It's a 3-year fraud now. With elections coming up again. Are they trying to keep it under wraps or something so the people don't really know? My own mother knows that Joe Biden isn't the president of the United States at this point. So do a lot of people. So what the hell they stop pretending for? Oh, yes, we are all the great pretenders, pretending that Biden's the president. Millions of people across this country understand that Joe Biden isn't the president of the United States. Or at least he's not running the government.
In the fog of war, we still have COVID. More than, as you well know, more.
Oh my God. COVID, another murderous, out of control lie that was, too. Oh God.
than 500,000 people have lost over 900,000 people.
Oh, what is it, Donna? Oh, Donna Brazil. What is it? 500,000, 900,000, a million? Yeah, blah, 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 1 million, 900,000, 600,000, yeah, I'm outraged. Is this it? Is this the State of the Union?
Have lost their lives. 500,000 doses of vaccines have been administered, but people are still worried that we're not getting out of this pandemic fast enough. So yeah.
In 2022? Lies after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie.
Yes, I want to hear him talk to the world, also talk to the moms and dads back at home, making sure that they know that we're safe, we're secure, and that the president is doing everything in his power to reduce.
Talk to the world, and then talk to the mom and dads back home. Well, where is he at? Back home? Where back home?
Inflation and to make sure that we bring back our jobs.
And the president's approval rating is at an all-time low.
Whose jobs, Donna Brazil? American jobs or your people's jobs? Where are you from? Where do you hail from, Donna Brazil? What's your ethnicity? What's your homeland countries? Are you for the Caribbean crew? Are you for the American flag and American people? It's an open question, Donna Brazil.
37%. Governor Christie, not that you'd like to see this, but what could the president do or say in order to turn those numbers around?
Look, he's got a lot of work to do in this regard, but I think the biggest problem, it's not any one policy that he can put forward. That's not what the American people are concerned about. They're concerned that we're rudderless right now. And for him to turn this around, begin to turn around tonight, he's got to show definitively that he's in charge and that he's got a plan and that he is ready to execute on that plan. And he's got a moment of national unity here. The Republicans and Democrats are united against Vladimir Putin. They're united against the actions that are being taken in Ukraine. He should take advantage of that moment as a political leader to try to unite the country behind a sense of hope.
Well, there's the clear choice. Chris Christie. Americans are concerned that we're rudderless, meaning that the president's office has been abdicated or taken over, has fell, versus Donna Brazil, perpetuating the leftist, Marxist, communist, fascist lie. The choice is clear here. Bankrupt Brazil Christie, speaking to the truth of the matter.
And foreign policy, no doubt, will take center stage tonight. President Biden imposed harsh sanctions on President Vladimir Putin, but some say that the rollout took too long.
You know what? It's despicable. It's despicable. Considering it's 2024 and we're all still living under the spells of these lies. I'm not under no spell. I'm not. No, not me. Lots of other people aren't under a spell either. No. But they all have no idea, these pundits and people. They don't know nothing. They don't know jack from shit.
Donna, how would you say that the president can use the handling of the war in Ukraine to his advantage?
Well, as Governor Christie said, we got to keep the country.
Gotta keep the country what, Donna Brazil? Liar, liar, pants on fire. Look at your ugly, angry face. Yeah. Throw down with Hillary and Bill. Keep it up. Where are you at today in 2024?
United. And the most important thing is that we have to make sure that all of our allies are on the same page. And I think they are on the same page. Look.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They still aren't. 2024. No, they're not all on the same page. No. Run away, EU. Run away from the United States. 90-day visas, all you can stay. Locked us out. That's right. They sure did. Good riddance, United States of America.
The president has really worked very hard to talk to not only President Zelensky.
Corinne LaPierre, is she in power or out of power yet? I know she's in power now. I don't know when she exactly. When Jen Psaki got ousted out due to a Change.org poll catastrophe. Yeah, that's what they do. That's how they operate. Corinne LaPierre. Is she your niece or your nephew or some relatives of yours, Donna?
Ukraine, but also to make sure that Germany, France, the UK, and many more, they're all on board with this strategy to tighten these sanctions and to ensure that the people of Ukraine are safe. So
no, they're not. No, they're not on board.
I think he has a tall order tonight, but knowing Joe Biden, he's going to meet the challenge.
If they can keep him awake long enough, Sleepy Joe.
And President Biden's aides have said, of course, that his address will also focus on the economy. According to an ABC News Washington Post poll, 6 in 10 Americans report inflation hardships. Governor Christie, how can you put the American people at ease that relief is on?
Chris Christie can't put anybody at ease. Neither can Donna Brazil. They're nothing. Joe Biden isn't even actually the president at the time of this address. No, he's not. The coup d'etat has already happened.
Away.
Well, the smartest thing he could do tonight is to say something very simple. Since he came into office, North Dakota, for instance, is producing 500,000 barrels less oil a day because of Biden administration regulation and restriction. We import about 480,000 barrels a day from Russia. The smartest thing Joe Biden could do tonight to help relieve...
Oh. Sanctions against Putin, but we're still importing oil from Russia. No, thank you, please. It only makes it sneeze, and then it makes it hard to find a door. Don't, no. Slipped on a flip-flop and cut my toe on a pop-top.
People's anxiety about rising prices and those actual rising prices to say we're in a national and an international crisis right now. We need to help ourselves and help our allies. We need to take the restrictions off oil and gas production here in the United States and move forward in that direction. Why are we buying 500,000 barrels of oil from Russia a day and funding?
Well, then he's going to dump oil out of the reserves. Depleted down to nothing. Thank you, Corinne LaPierre and your people for taking over the United States government in a military administrative coup.
Those troops that Putin is sending into Ukraine, if he were to say something like that, one, it would be completely
No. Vladimir Putin did not send Vladimir Putin versus Volodymyr Zelensky versus Vladimir Putin. Putin did not send any troops into the Ukrainian territory. No, he did not. The Russians that are there are ethnic Russians that are Ukrainian Russians. You have Ukrainians who are really the white Russians, Ukrainian Russians who are Ukrainians but Russians, and they're having a civil war. Has nothing to do with Vladimir Putin. It doesn't. My bet is Volodymyr Zelensky's here in the United States. That'd be my guess.
Expected, and two, it would be, I believe, almost except for the extreme left, universally welcomed by the country.
Perhaps he's listening and taking some notes. Chris Christie, Donna Brazil.
No, he's not listening. He's comatose. Getting propped up ready for this speech.
We thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Tonight, President Biden is also expected to highlight his history-making pick for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Tomorrow on Capitol Hill, she begins a blitz of critical meetings with senators who will vote on her nomination. For more on what's...
You know what? Let's cut to the chase here. I'm tired of the dog and pony show.
Compartmentalize those numbers.
Putin's led
Faces. Everyone here is socializing, catching up.
There's an hour.
This is the story of Elizabeth Holmes. You got intrigued, deceit, fantasy. It's all there. Can't peel your eyes away.
Any comments, Elizabeth? Any comments, Elizabeth?
God bless you, girl, boss.
The new man in her life, the new baby. And now, as Elizabeth Holmes awaits sentencing, what you haven't seen, haven't heard.
Behind the scenes, it was an absolute mess.
My jaw dropped.
Part of the human trait, being fascinated by a train wreck. I was blown away.
The new 2020 Friday night on ABC.
I risked my life. I put my family in danger. If I was caught, they would have put a bullet in my head. But it was the right thing to do. It was the only thing to do.
Terror plot foiled in Garden City, Kansas.
That would have been one of the most deadly acts of domestic terrorism ever in the United States.
It would have been Oklahoma City.
Yeah. We've had it. The overthrow of the government on January 6th. Yes. From within and without. From within and without. January 6, 2021. The overthrow. The first State of the Union address since the overthrow of the government. It ought to be interesting.
He put his family, himself in jeopardy for us.
Oh, there she is. The lady from the island, man. A perpetrator.
Is that the gun?
That's not the gun.
What is it? I won't ask you again then.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Are you a Nazi? The deeper you go into black...
We shared with the world in advance what we...
Barrett as well. The president will make the case on the virus tonight.
Can't peel your eyes away.
President.
The joint session about a war they did not want.
Blown away.
The new 2020 Friday night on ABC.
I risked my life. I put my family in danger. If I was caught, they would have put a bullet in my head. But it was the right thing to do. It was the only thing to do.
Thank you, Hulu.
Terror plot foiled in
For
Garden
spinning
City,
everybody
Kansas.
That
up.
would have been one of the most deadly acts of domestic terrorism ever.
Barrett as well. Just a joint session of Congress here. Arriving moments ago. The world will indeed be watching.
Here is David Muir.
25 years. How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the
David
U.S. Marshals
Muir.
as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt.
I'm not
Can
going
you
to
help
interrupt.
catch this
I'm
fugitive?
just going to let
Have
it
you seen
play.
this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
The all-new hunt.
ABC News, America's #1 news.
Uninterrupted.
Good evening. President Biden set to address Congress and the nation. An historic night ahead
Our ABC News coverage begins right now.
This is an ABC News special, The State of the Union.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war. America stands up to bullies. This is who we are.
Against a backdrop of war in Europe.
This is a flagrant violation of international law and demands a firm response from the international community.
A pandemic.
No, it's anarchy in the United States of America. Not Putin, aggressor against Ukraine. Anarchy in the United States of America. They're still perpetuating the same lie.
Ravaging the country for 2 long years.
We've been doing everything we can and preparing for a future beyond the pandemic.
And economic challenges not seen in decades.
Now we need to get...
No, because the government is in anarchy, being operated by Corinne LaPierre and her people. She stands at the podium every day. After they ousted Jen Psaki.
Inflation under control.
President Biden addresses a very divided country.
No one got everything they wanted, including me.
No one got everything they wanted, including me. Nobody got anything. We got ripped off a nation. Coup d'etat toppled the country. From within and without. Complicity and compliance.
But that's what compromise is. That's consensus.
You don't compromise. There is no compromise and no consensus when it comes to anarchy. And the rule of law and the Constitution of the United States.
Tonight, before Congress, the nation, and the eyes of the world, President Biden delivers his first State of the
Congress, the nation, and the eyes of the world. I see the priorities are all fucked up.
Union address. Reporting live from Washington, David Muir.
And good evening tonight from the nation's capital, where in just a few moments, President Biden will deliver his first State of the Union address to the nation. Americans watching, the world will indeed be watching as the president enters the House chamber on Capitol Hill.
He didn't give an address in 2021? In 2021. He says the first. What the fuck?
Moments from now, these are extraordinary times. The Russian invasion of Ukraine dominating the world's attention.
He doesn't say the Russian Federation invasion of the sovereign state of Ukraine. More lies. More lies. Ethnic cleansing by Ukrainians versus who are white Russians versus Russians who are Ukrainians. Ethnic cleansing. And Volodymyr Zelensky held up in the United States of America. Probably part of his takeover of this country. Yeah, my guess is. Yeah. The way his ambassador traveled all around the country. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's not proper. I don't give a fuck. Take a gun out and shoot me already.
The death toll mounting, nearly 700,000 refugees now. The U.S. and its European allies, NATO, all standing united with crippling sanctions.
No. 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 No, 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 no.
Against Russia, against Vladimir Putin himself. This invasion, 4,800 miles away, will be front and center right here in Washington tonight.
Look at those people.
So much of this State of the Union.
Look at those people dressed like cameramen, but they're guards standing down there. They're guards standing down there looking like cameramen? That's not proper.
Will resemble a wartime speech. We have not seen war in Europe, an invasion of this scale since World War.
No. An invasion and takeover of the United States of America. A coup d'etat, administrative, military, and otherwise. Now, 3 years on. What a way to negotiate yourself out of something like this. Perpetuate a fraud against the American people. American people have figured it out by now. And nobody's come clean yet.
Two, in fact, we've seen many members of Congress wearing the Ukrainian flag, the colors there. You can see one of them there. Some of the justices have arrived. The president will address.
Oh, laying on a desk. Oh, that's wearing the colors, laying on a desk. Amy Conant Bryant. Brett Kavanaugh. 2 of Trump's appointees. Of course, the third being Neil Gorsuch. Amy Conant Bryant being the last.
The situation involving Russia and Ukraine, this unprovoked war, right at the top of his address.
Justice Breyer, Chief Justice Roberts.
Tonight, he believes Putin was not expecting the resolve of the Ukrainian people. The
Military in the background.
president also believes Putin
Another justice over here with the black robe.
was not expecting this united front from the U.S. and its NATO allies. We have seen tonight members of Congress, as I mentioned, not only the pins, but many wearing blue and yellow in solidarity. Foreign policy, national security, front and center
I don't see people wearing yellow and blue in solidarity.
tonight, but so too will be the economy, of course. It's all connected. Energy prices, gas prices going up with what we're seeing.
Who is that?
First Lady Jill
Who
Biden
is that walking?
arriving moments ago, and along with a number of visitors, you can see her shaking the hand there. And this is significant because she invited with her tonight the ambassador of Ukraine, Oksana
Oh, the ambassador of Ukraine right next to her. Okay.
Makarova. We've had her on our air. We've seen her on the airwaves here in the
President of the United States.
Sergeant at Arms and wartime speech. We have not seen war in Europe, an invasion of this scale, since World War II. In fact, we've seen many members of Congress wearing the Ukrainian flag, the colors there. You can see one of them there. Some of the justices have arrived. The president will address the situation involving Russia and Ukraine, this unprovoked war, right at the top of his address tonight. He believes Putin was not expecting the resolve of the Ukrainian people. The president also believes Putin was not expecting this united front from the U.S. and its NATO allies. We have seen tonight members of Congress, as I mentioned, not only the pins, but many wearing blue and yellow in solidarity. Foreign policy, national security, front and center tonight, but so too will be the economy, of course. It's all connected. Energy prices, gas prices going up with what we're seeing. First Lady Jill Biden arriving moments ago, and along with a number of visitors.
Right there, with her back. The ambassador of Ukraine. Yeah, where they invaded and took over the United States. Yes, that's what happened. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, it's exactly what happened. Ukraine itself, injecting itself into our politics. Yeah, participating in a coup d'etat of the United States of America. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, along with big tech and other corporate interests.
You can see her shaking the hand there, and this is significant because she invited with her tonight the ambassador of Ukraine, Oksana Makarova. We've had her on our air. We've seen her on the airwaves here in the United States making the plea for the Ukrainian people about a war they did not want. This was an unprovoked war. And she has told the stories of the mothers and children who've left, their fathers staying behind, all men, 18 to 60, forced to stay in Ukraine and fight back against the Russians. The president knows Americans.
Yeah, the ethnic cleansing that she and her president are involved with. Cleansing Russians out of Ukraine, including clergy and everyone else. It's disgusting. It's despicable. And the charade continues on now 3 years later. They still haven't given the date of this address. The date? They haven't stated the date of the address yet.
Here at home are already exhausted, frustrated by inflation here at home at a 40-year high, gas, groceries, rent, driven in large part by this 2-year pandemic. But a big change, as you can see in the chamber there tonight, far more in attendance this year.
Yeah, it looks a lot smaller all of a sudden. Yeah, a lot smaller. Yeah, I'm not sure where they're at.
Masks not required. In fact, we really haven't seen a mask in the room, with this country now well on the other side of the Omicron surge. Only about 200 were allowed in the house.
Oh, the Omicron. The Omicron? Is that a watch? Omicron watch? A watch surge?
Chamber a year ago. Tonight, members of the House, the Senate, the Cabinet. We watched members of the Cabinet arrive moments ago. Justices from the Supreme Court are there in the chamber tonight. You can see the Chief Justice, John Roberts.
Oh, they were just mixing and mingling all around on the floor. Now they're walking in?
Moments ago, Justice Breyer, who will be retiring, the big historic announcement for his replacement in recent days. Justice Kagan there as well. Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett as well. The president will make the case.
Isn't that who Ketanji Jackson replaced? Didn't Ketanji Jackson replace Breyer? Well, weren't they just talking earlier about Ketanji Jackson? So what happened to continuity here?
Based on the virus tonight, that we have the tools now, should there be another variant, and then we're entering a new chapter, one that we will live with in this country. He had long hoped that tonight's address would be a reset to get his agenda, his first term, back on track. But he speaks to a deeply divided nation. His approval rating just 37%, the lowest point of his presidency.
Who the hell is this woman over here and this guy over here? She looks like she's from the Caribbean.
And Mary Bruce, who's in the chamber tonight, we're watching as the Vice President Kamala Harris and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, await the president's arrival.
David, the scene here is surreal because it just...
It is surreal. Because the next time, Mike Johnson is sitting where Nancy Pelosi's sitting. I saw that recently. 2023. Recently. Well, that's a year ago. This is 2 years ago. It's surreal.
Feels so normal. It strikes me we are about to see Joe Biden do something I don't think we've seen him do anywhere as president, and that is to work a crowded room without a mask. You say the mandate here has been lifted. Everyone in the room has been tested, but I've seen very few masks, just a handful. It's really remarkable, actually, just to see so many faces. Everyone here is socializing, catching up. They're following the science on this, of course, but it certainly is convenient.
So the justices all came in. And then it's all mixing and mingling and mixing and mingling and mixing and mingling. And then the next come in. That's not how it works.
Timing for the president politically, as he will argue we are entering a new phase of this pandemic.
Madam Speaker.
He doesn't need to be guided and to do his job either.
The President of the United States.
Announcing the president has arrived for his first.
Who is that lady?
Address. Of course, he addressed.
Who is she?
The joint session of.
Who is she?
Congress a year ago.
Who is she walking ahead of the president?
This is his first State of the
Who is that?
Union, and it is a tall order.
Who is this woman walking ahead of the president of the United States?
Our chief White House correspondent watching this with me. The president has a lot to talk about tonight.
Who is she? Who is that woman? Look at Joe Biden. Oh my God, what a fraud. Oh my God. 2 years on.
Not only abroad, but what Americans have been facing here at home.
And that is going to be a big part of his message. He's going to be talking about inflation. He will mention that word directly. He will lay out some of his plan to try to combat this. But David, as we've been talking about this week and tonight particularly, he is going to start this speech with Russia. He's had to revise it a number of times given the current climate that we are seeing in Ukraine right now. You mentioned it, that they wanted this to be a reset. And the reality is it's not necessarily going to be a reset for him right now. He's got to address
Who are those two people?
these current events. He's going to call out Putin by name, saying that he underestimated NATO. He's going to rally these allies around sanctions again and really lay out this theme of democracy versus autocracy. He's got to do this delicate dance, though, of hitting.
Oh my God. Game up, game over a long time ago. Oh wow, this video is at a little bit over an hour. We'll get through his address. I'm not going to comment during his address. No, I'll just let it play straight through.
At war in Europe, making it relatable to Americans at home, remind them how this is going to hurt their bottom line and what he's going to do to try to avoid that as much as possible.
Part of the strategy against Vladimir
Look at
Putin
that
has
other
been laying out
reporter.
as much U.S. intelligence as possible, as you know, Cecilia. And so
That other reporter in the black and white check had in his arm on the other guy.
many Americans have followed this for weeks now, along with the rest of the world. And John Carl, it's hard not to underscore that this is something we haven't seen in Europe since World War II.
David, tonight has the feel of a wartime speech. There is a massacre unfolding in the heart of Europe, a massacre being perpetuated by a country that has
a massacre inside the United States of America.
Thousands of nuclear weapons aimed at the United States. Now, Russia is facing punishing sanctions, just as Joe Biden said they would, but it clearly hasn't been enough. It hasn't stopped Vladimir Putin.
President at the podium giving a copy of his speech to the Speaker of the House, of course Nancy Pelosi, and to the Vice President Kamala Harris, smiling. And one thing very different this year, the President shaking many hands on his way down that aisle.
Different? He just said one thing very different this year, shaking many hands. Well, where's the address from the year before? Is it part of the missing minutes of the Nixon tapes?
He is expected to start this address.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
That doesn't even look like Joe Biden. That profile, that doesn't look like Joe Biden. No, it doesn't. Members of Congress, I have the... No.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, General.
He was kidnapped somehow and taken out of the country. And when you see him returned to somewhere in England, that's when he was being returned from being held incommunicado somewhere.
Thank you.
So this is it. I'm not going to interrupt anymore. Just going to hear and watch and see and listen.
Thank you. Please. Thank you so much. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President, our First Lady and Second Gentlemen, members of Congress and the Cabinet, Justice of the Supreme Court, my fellow Americans. Last year, COVID-19 kept us apart. This year, we're finally together again. Tonight, we meet as Democrats, Republicans, Independents, but most importantly, as Americans, with the duty to one another, to America, to the American people, to the Constitution, and an unwavering resolve that freedom will always triumph over tyranny. Thank you. 6 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin sought to shake the very foundations of the free world, thinking
6 days ago. Well, if the invasion was February 22nd, then this would be February 28th, 2022. Well, let's see what day of the week that was. My God. Can I figure out how to operate it? May. Oh. February 22nd was a Tuesday. February 22nd would have been a Wednesday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wednesday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 days ago. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tuesday, the 28th day of, no, that's May. Of what year? See how confusing it is? Does it strike you as odd? How difficult it is to figure this out? Strikes me as odd. Tuesday, the 22nd day of February, that was the invasion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, Monday, the 28th day of February, 2022. So, we'll find out if the State of the Union occurred on Monday, the 28th day of February, 2022. I'm really going to try to not interrupt.
make it bend to his menacing ways. But he badly miscalculated. He thought he could roll into Ukraine and the world would roll over. Instead, he met with a wall of strength he never anticipated or imagined. He met the Ukrainian people. President Zelensky, to every Ukrainian, their fearlessness, their courage, their determination literally inspires the world. Groups of citizens blocking tanks with their bodies. Everyone from students to retirees to teachers turned soldiers defending their homeland. And in this struggle, President Zelensky said in his speech to the European Parliament, "Light will win over darkness." The Ukrainian ambassador to the United States is here tonight, sitting with the First Lady. Let each of us, if you're able to stand and send an unmistakable signal to the world of Ukraine.
Yeah, that you will fail.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That their dastardly plot will fail. Yeah, an unmistakable resolve that they will fail. Aided by their West Indian, Caribbean allies. Karine LaPierre. Yeah.
She's bright, she's strong, she's resolved. America stand with the Ukrainian people. Throughout our history, we've learned this lesson. When
we stand with the people. We stand with the people. Not that diplomat or not Volodymyr Zelensky. No, the people.
Dictators do not pay a price for their aggression. They cause more chaos. They keep moving.
Oh,
and the
chaos.
cost, the threats to America and America to the world keeps rising. That's why the NATO alliance was created, to secure peace and stability in Europe after World War II. The United States is a member, along with 29 other nations. It matters. American diplomacy matters. American resolve matters. Putin's latest attack on Ukraine was premeditated and totally unprovoked.
No, Putin didn't
He rejected repeated efforts at diplomacy.
Not.
He thought the West and NATO wouldn't respond.
No, he did not.
He thought he could divide us at home,
no,
in this chamber, in this nation.
No, they did not.
He thought he could divide us in Europe as well.
Ukrainians against
we are ready. We are united, and that's what
Russians.
we did. We stayed united. We
prepared
we did not. Extensively and carefully.
This is a lie.
We spent months building coalitions of other freedom-loving nations in Europe and the Americas, from America to the Asian and African continents, to confront Putin.
False. Lies.
Like many of you, I spent countless hours unifying your European allies.
State of the Union address.
We shared with the world in advance what we knew Putin was planning and precisely how we would try to falsify and justify his aggression.
Ethnic
we countered Russia's lies with the truth. And now,
Vladimir
Putin. He's active.
It's lies.
The free world is holding him accountable.
He's lying.
Along with 27 members of the European Union, including France, Germany, Italy, as well as countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and many others, even Switzerland, are inflicting pain on Russia and supporting the people of Ukraine.
Neutral. It's a lie.
Putin is now isolated from the world more than he has ever been. Together,
the greatest lie ever perpetuated against the American people.
Together, along with our allies, allies, we are right now enforcing powerful economic sanctions. We're cutting off Russia's largest banks and international financial.
No. 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 It's all lies. The Russian Federation did not invade the sovereign territory of Ukraine. It did not happen. It's ethnic Ukrainians versus ethnic Russians within inside Ukraine. And that ambassador traveled all over the United States to blackmail, put on the spot, sabotage, intimidate people into God only knows what. I had a freaking Russian, Ukrainian, whatever, in my own apartment, for God's sakes. Yes, I did. How disgusting is that? Not even a citizen of the United States she was. Yes, right in my own apartment, pretending to work for the government of the city of New York. Yes. Disgusting, isn't it?
System, preventing Russia's central bank from defending the Russian ruble, making Putin's $630 billion war fund worthless. We're choking Russia's access. We're choking Russia's access to technology that will sap its economic strength and weaken its military for years to come. Tonight, I say to the Russian oligarchs and the corrupt leaders who built billions of dollars off this violent regime, no more. The United States, I mean it. The United States Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for you, ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming. The ruble has already lost 30% of its value. The Russian stock market has lost 40% of its value, and trading remains suspended. The Russian economy is reeling, and Putin alone is the one to blame. Together with our allies, we're providing support to the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Military assistance, economic assistance, humanitarian assistance. We're giving more than $1 billion of direct assistance to Ukraine, and will continue to aid the Ukrainian people as they defend their country and help ease their suffering. But let me be clear.
2 years on, for the year 2023, the Russian Federation's economy has grown by almost 4%. And in the first quarter of this year is on track to grow another 4%. Lies, lies, lies.
Forces are not engaged and will not engage in the conflict with Russian forces in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies in the event that Putin decides to keep moving west. For that purpose, we have mobilized American ground forces, air squadrons, ship deployments to protect NATO countries including Poland, Romania, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And as I've made crystal clear, the United States and our allies will defend every inch of territory that is NATO territory with the full force of our collective power. Every single inch. Ukrainians are fighting back with pure courage, but the next few days, weeks, and months will be hard on them. Putin has unleashed violence and chaos, but while he may make gains on the battlefield, he'll pay a continuing high price over the long run. And a pound of Ukrainian people, the proud people, pound for pound, ready to fight with every inch.
Pound for pound? Sounds like a commercial. Pound for pound. My God. How idiotic.
Of earnings they have. They've known 30 years of independence, have repeatedly shown that they will not tolerate anyone who tries to take their country backwards. To all Americans, I'll be honest with you, as I always promised I would be. A Russian dictator invading a foreign country has cost around the world. And I'm taking robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, and that we use every tool at our disposal to protect American businesses and consumers. Tonight, I can announce the United States has worked with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world. America will lead that effort, releasing 30 million barrels of our own strategic petroleum reserve. And we stand ready to do more if necessary, united with our allies. These steps will help blunt gas prices here at home, but I know news about what's happening can seem alarming to all Americans. But I want you to know, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. When the history of this era is written, Putin's war in Ukraine will have left Russia weaker and the rest of the world stronger. Well, while it shouldn't have taken something so terrible for people around the world to see what's at stake. Now everyone sees it clearly. We see the unity among leaders of nations, a more unified Europe, a more unified West. We see unity among the people who are gathering in cities and large crowds around the world, even in Russia, to demonstrate their support for the people of Ukraine. In the battle between democracy and autocracies, democracies are rising to the moment, and the world is clearly choosing the side of peace and security. This is the real test, and it's going to take time. So let us continue to draw inspiration from the iron will of the Ukrainian people. To our fellow Ukrainian Americans who forged the deep bond that connects our two nations, we stand with you. We stand with you. Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never weaken the resolve of the free world. We meet tonight in an America that has lived through two of the hardest years this nation has ever faced. The pandemic has been punishing, and so many families are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to keep up with the rising cost of food, gas, housing, and so much more. I understand, like many of you did. My dad had to leave his home in Scranton, Pennsylvania to find work. So like many of you, I grew up in a family when the price of food went up, it was felt throughout the family. It had an impact. That's what one of the first things I did as president was fight to pass the American Rescue Plan. Because people were hurting. We needed to act, and we did. Few pieces of legislation have done more at a critical moment in our history to lift us out of a crisis. It fueled our efforts to vaccinate the nation and combat COVID-19. Delivered immediate economic relief to tens of millions of Americans. It helped put food on the table. Remember those long lines of cars waiting for hours just to get a box of food put in their trunk? It cut the cost of health care insurance. And as my dad used to say, it gave the people just a little bit of breathing room. Unlike the $2 trillion tax cut passed in the previous administration that benefited the top 1% of Americans, the American Rescue Plan rescue plan helped working people and left no one behind. Folks, and it worked. It worked. Created jobs, lots of jobs. In fact, our economy created over 6.5 million new jobs just last year. More jobs in 1 year than ever before in the history of the United States of America. The economy grew at a rate of 5.7 last year, the strongest growth rate in 40 years. And the first step in bringing fundamental change to our economy that hasn't worked for working people in this nation for too long. For the past 40 years, we were told that tax break for those at the top and benefits would trickle down and everyone would benefit. But that trickle-down theory led to a weaker economic growth, lower wages, bigger deficits, and a widening gap between the top and everyone else in nearly a century. Look, Vice President Harris and I ran for office, and I realize we have fundamental disagreements on this, but ran for office with a new economic vision for America. Invest in America, educate Americans, grow the workforce, build the economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down, because we know when the middle class grows, the poor will way up and the wealthy do very well. America used to have the best roads, bridges, and airports on earth. And now our infrastructure is ranked 13th in the world. We won't be able to compete for the jobs of the 21st century if we don't fix it. That's why it was so important to pass the bipartisan infrastructure law. And I thank my Republican friends who joined to invest and rebuild America. The single biggest investment in history. It was a bipartisan effort, and I want to thank the members of both parties who worked to make it happen. We're done talking about infrastructure weeks. We're now talking about an infrastructure decade. And look, it's going to transform America, to put us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with the rest of the world, particularly China. I've told Xi Jinping it's never been a good bet to bet against the American people. We'll create good jobs for millions of Americans, modernizing roads, airports, ports, waterways, all across America. And we'll do it to withstand the devastating effects of climate change and promote environmental justice. We'll build a national network of 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Begin to replace the poisonous lead pipes so every child, every American has clean water to drink at home and at school. We're going to provide affordable, high-speed internet for every American, rural, suburban, urban, and tribal communities. 4,000 projects have already been announced. Many of you have announced them in your districts. And tonight, I'm announcing that this year, we will start fixing over 65,000 miles of highway and 1,500 bridges in disrepair. And folks, when we use taxpayers' dollars to rebuild America, we're going to do it by buying America. Buy American products. Support American jobs. The federal government spends about $600 billion a year to keep this country safe and secure. There's been a law on the books for almost a century to make sure taxpayers' dollars support American jobs and businesses. Every administration, Democrat or Republican, says they'll do it. But we're actually doing it. We'll buy America to make sure everything from the deck of an aircraft carrier to the steel and highway guardrails is made in America from beginning to end. All of it. All of it. But folks, to compete for the jobs of the future, we also need a level playing field with China and other competitors. That's why it's so important to pass the Bipartisan Innovation Act sitting in Congress that will make record investments in emerging technologies and American manufacturing. We used to invest almost 2% of our GDP in research and development. We don't now. China is. Let me give you one example why it's so important to pass. If you travel 20 miles east of Columbus, Ohio, you'll find 1,000 empty acres of land. It won't look like much, but if you stop and look closely, you'll see a field of dreams. The ground on which America's future will be built. That's where Intel, the American company that helped build Silicon Valley, is going to build a $20 billion
a field of dreams, who dares it?
Up to 8 state-of-the-art factories in one place. 10,000 new jobs. And in those factories, the average job about $135,000 a year. Some of the most sophisticated manufacturing in the world to make computer chips the size of a fingertip that power the world in everyday lives. From smartphones, technology to the internet, technology is yet to be invented. But that's just the beginning. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger, who is here tonight. I don't know where Pat is. Pat, there you go. Pat, stand up. Pat came to see me, and he told me they're ready to increase their investment from $20 billion to $100 billion. That would be the biggest investment in manufacturing in American history. And all they're waiting for is for you to pass this bill. So let's not wait any longer. Send it to my desk. I'll sign it. And we'll really take off in a big way. And folks, Intel is not alone. There's something happening in America. Just look around and you'll see an amazing story. The rebirth of pride that comes from stamping products made in America. The revitalization of American manufacturing. Companies are choosing to build new factories here when just a few years ago they would have gone overseas. That's what's happening. Ford is investing $11 billion in electric vehicles, creating 11,000 jobs across the country. GM is making the largest investment in its history, $7 billion to build electric vehicles, creating 4,000 jobs in Michigan. All told, 369,000 new manufacturing jobs were created in America last year alone. Folks, powered by people I've met like JoJo Burgess from generations of union steelworkers in Pittsburgh, who's here with us tonight. Where are you, JoJo? There you go. Thanks, buddy. As Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown says, Sherrod Brown says it's time to bury the label Rust Belt. It's time to see the what used to be called the Rust Belt become the home of a significant resurgence of manufacturing. And with all the bright spots in our economy, record job growth, higher wages, too many families are struggling to keep up with their bills. Inflation is robbing them of gains they thought otherwise they would be able to feel. I get it. That's why my top priority is getting prices under control. Look, our economy roared back faster than almost anyone predicted. But the pandemic meant that businesses had a hard time hiring enough people because of the pandemic to keep up production in their factories. So you didn't have people making those beams that went into buildings because they were out. The factory was closed. The panic also disrupted the global supply chain. Factories close. When that happens, it takes longer to make goods and get them to the warehouses, to the stores, and prices go up. Look at cars last year. 1/3 of all the inflation was because of automobile sales. There weren't enough semiconductors to make all the cars that people wanted to buy. And guess what? Prices of automobiles went way up, especially used vehicles as well. And so we have a choice. One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poorer. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages. Folks, that means make more cars and semiconductors in America, more infrastructure and innovation in America, more goods moving faster and cheaper in America, more jobs where you can earn a good living in America. Instead of relying on foreign supply chains, let's make it in America. Look, economists, call this increasing the productive capacity of our economy. I call it building a better America. My plan to fight inflation will lower your costs and lower the deficit. 17 Nobel laureates in economics said my plan will ease long-term inflationary pressures. Top business leaders, and I believe most Americans support the plan. And here's the plan. First, cut the cost of prescription drugs. We pay more for the same drug produced by the same company in America than any other country in the world. Just look at insulin. 1 in 10 Americans has diabetes. In Virginia, I met a 13-year-old boy, the handsome young man standing up there, Joshua Davis. He and his dad both have type 1 diabetes, which means they need insulin every single day. Insulin costs about $10 a vial to make. That's what it costs the pharmaceutical company. But drug companies charge families like Joshua and his dad up to 30 times that amount. I spoke with Joshua's mom. Imagine what it's like to look at your child who needs insulin to stay healthy and have no idea how in God's name you're going to be able to pay for it. What it does to your family, but what it does to your dignity, your ability to look your child in the eye, to be the parent you expect yourself to be. I really mean to think about that. That's what I think about. You know, yesterday, Joshua's here tonight, but yesterday was his birthday. Happy birthday, buddy, by the way. For Joshua and 200,000 other young people with type 1 diabetes, let's cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month. So everyone can afford it. And drug companies will do very, very well. Their profit margin. While we're at it, I know we have great disagreements on this floor with this. Let's let Medicare negotiate the price of prescription drugs. They already set the price for VA drugs. Look, the American Rescue Plan is helping millions of families with Affordable Care Act plans to save them $2,400 a year on their health premiums. Let's close the coverage gap and make these savings permanent. And second, let's cut energy costs for families, an average of $500 a year by combating climate change. Let's provide an investment tax credits to weatherize your home and your business, to be energy efficient and get a tax credit for it. Double America's clean energy production in solar, wind, and so much more. Lower the price of electric vehicles, saving another $80 a month that you're not going to have to pay at the pump. Folks, change the standard of living for hardworking folks is cut the cost of child care. Cut the cost of child care. Folks, if you live in a major city in America, you pay up to $14,000 a year for child care per child. I was a single dad for 5 years, raising 2 kids. I had a lot of help, though. I had a mom, a dad, a brother, and a sister that really helped. But middle class and working folks shouldn't have to pay more than 7% of their income to care for their young children. My plan would cut the cost of child care in half for most families and help parents, including millions of women who left the workforce during the pandemic because they couldn't afford child care, to be able to get back to work, generating economic growth. But my plan doesn't stop there. It also includes home and long-term care, more affordable housing, pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds. All these will lower costs for families. And under my plan, nobody, let me say this again, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in new taxes. Not a single penny. I may be wrong, but my guess is if we took a secret ballot in this floor, that we'd all agree that the present tax system ain't fair. We have to fix it. I'm not looking to punish anybody. But let's make corporations and wealthy Americans start paying their fair share. Look, last year, and like Chris Coons and Tom Carper and my distinguished Congresswoman, we come from the land of corporate America. There are more corporations incorporated in America than every other state in America combined. And I still won 36 years in a row. The point is, even they understand they should pay just a fair share. Last year, 55 of the Fortune 500 companies earned $40 billion in profit and paid zero in federal taxes. Now look, it's not fair. That's why I proposed a 15% minimum tax rate for corporations. And that's why in the G7 and other meetings overseas, we're able to put together, I was able to be somewhat helpful, 130 countries agree on a global minimum tax rate. So companies can't get out of paying their taxes at home by shipping jobs and factories overseas. It'll raise billions of dollars. That's why I propose closing loopholes for the very wealthy who pay a lower tax rate than a teacher and a firefighter. So that's my plan, but we'll go in more detail later. We will grow the economy, lower the cost of families. So what are we waiting for? Let's get this done. We all know we've got to make changes. Folks, and while you're at it, confirm my nominees for the Federal Reserve, which plays a critical role in fighting inflation. My plan will not only lower costs and give families a fair shot, it will lower the deficit. The previous administration not only ballooned the deficit with those tax cuts for the very wealthy and corporations, it undermined the watchdogs, the job of those to keep pandemic relief funds being wasted. Remember we had those debates about whether or not those watchdogs should be able to see every day how much money was being spent, where was it going to the right place? In my administration, the watchdogs are back. And we're going to go after the criminals who stole billions of relief money meant for small business and millions of Americans. Tonight, I'm announcing that the Justice Department will soon name a chief prosecutor for pandemic fraud. Look, I think we all agree. Thank you. By the end of this year, the deficit will be down to less than half of what it was before I took office. The only president ever to cut the deficit by more than $1 trillion in a single year. Lowering your cost also meant demanding more competition. I'm a capitalist, but capitalism without competition is not capitalism. Capitalism without competition is exploitation. It drives up profits. When corporations have to compete, their profits go up and your prices go up when they don't have to compete. Small businesses and family farmers and ranchers, I need not tell some of my Republican friends from those states. Guess what? You got 4 basic meat packing facilities. That's it. You play with them or you don't get to play at all. And you pay a hell of a lot more. A hell of a lot more because there's only 4. See what's happening with ocean carriers and moving goods in and out of America. During the pandemic, about half a dozen or less foreign-owned companies raised prices by as much as 1,000% and made record profits. Tonight, I'm announcing a crackdown on those companies overcharging American businesses and consumers. Folks, and as Wall Street firms take over more nursing homes, quality in those homes has gone down and costs have gone up. That ends on my watch. Medicare is going to set higher standards for nursing homes and make sure your loved ones get the care they deserve and that they inspect and they will look at closely. We're also going to cut costs to keep the economy going strong and giving workers a fair shot, provide more training and apprenticeships, hire them based on skills, not just their degrees. Let's pass the Paycheck Fairness Act and paid leave. Raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour and extend the child tax credit so no one has to raise a family in poverty. Let's increase Pell Grants, increase our historic support for HBCUs, and invest in what Jill, our First Lady who teaches full-time, calls America's best-kept secret, community colleges. Look, let's pass the PRO Act. When a majority of workers want to form a union, they shouldn't be able to be stopped. When we invest in our workers and we build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out together, we can do something we haven't done in a long time. Build a better America. For more than 2 years, COVID has impacted every decision in our lives and the life of this nation. And I know you're tired, frustrated, and exhausted. That doesn't even count the close to 1 million people who sit at a dining room table or a kitchen table and look at an empty chair because they lost somebody. But I also know this, because of the progress we've made, because of your resilience and the tools that we have been provided by this Congress, tonight I can say we're moving forward safely back to more normal routines. We've reached a new moment in the fight against COVID-19, where severe cases are down to a level not seen since July of last year. Just a few days ago, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention issued a new mask guidelines. Under the new guidelines, most Americans and most of the country can now go mask-free. And based on projections, more of the country will reach a point across the next couple of weeks. And thanks to the progress we've made in the past year, COVID-19 no longer need control our lives. I know some are talking about living with COVID-19, but tonight I say that we never will just accept living with COVID-19. We'll continue to combat the virus as we do other diseases. And because this virus mutates and spreads, we have to stay on guard. And here are 4 common sense steps as we move forward safely, in my view. First, stay protected with vaccines and treatments. We know how incredibly effective vaccines are. If you're vaccinated and boosted, you have the highest degree of protection. And we'll never give up on vaccinating more Americans. Now, I know parents with kids under 5 are eager to see their vaccines authorized for their children. Scientists are working hard to get that done. We'll be ready with plenty of vaccines if and when they do. We're all ready. We are also ready with antiviral treatments. If you get COVID-19, the Pfizer pill reduces your chances of ending up in the hospital by 90%. I've ordered more pills than anyone in the world has. Pfizer is working overtime to get us 1 million pills this month and more than double that next month. And now we're launching the Test to Treat initiative. So people can get tested at a pharmacy, and if they prove positive, receive the antiviral pills on the spot at no cost. Folks, if you're immunocompromised or have some other vulnerability, we have treatments and free high-quality masks. We're leaving no one behind or ignoring anyone's needs as we move forward. On testing, we've made hundreds of millions of tests available, and you can order them for free to your doorstep. And we've already ordered free tests. If you already ordered free tests tonight, I'm announcing you can order another group of tests. Go to covidtest.gov starting next week, and you can get more tests. Second, we must prepare for new variants. Over the past, we've gotten much better at detecting new variants. If necessary, we'll be able to develop new vaccines within 100 days instead of maybe months or years. And if Congress provides the funds we need, we'll have new stockpiles of tests, masks, pills ready if needed. I can't promise a new variant won't come, but I can promise you we'll do everything within our power to be ready if it does. Third, we can end the shutdown of schools and businesses. We have the tools we need. It's time for America to get back to work and fill our great downtowns again with people. People working from home can feel safe and begin to return to their offices. We're doing that here in the federal government. The vast majority of federal workers will once again work in person. Our schools are open. Let's keep it that way. Our kids need to be in school. 75% of adult Americans fully vaccinated, and hospitalizations down by 77%. Most Americans can remove their masks and stay in the classroom and move forward safely. We achieved this because we provided free vaccines, treatments, tests, and masks. Of course, continuing this costs money, so I'll not surprise you. I'll be back to see you all. And I'm going to soon send a request to Congress. The vast majority of Americans have used these tools and may want again. We may need them again, so I expect Congress, and I hope you'll pass that quickly. Fourth, we'll continue vaccinating the world. We've sent 475 million vaccine doses to 112 countries, more than any nation on earth. We won't stop, because you can't build a wall high enough to keep out a vaccine. The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases. You know, we've lost so much in COVID-19. Time with one another. The worst of all, the loss of life. Let's use this moment to reset. So stop looking at COVID as a partisan dividing line. See it for what it is, a god-awful disease. Let's stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other for who we are, fellow Americans. Look. We can't change how divided we've been. It was a long time in coming. But we can change how to move forward on COVID-19 and other issues that we must face together. I recently visited New York City Police Department days after the funerals of Officer Wilbur Mora and his partner, Officer Jason Rivera. They were responding to a 9/11 call when a man shot and killed them with a stolen gun. Officer Mora was 27 years old. Officer Rivera was 22 years old. Both Dominican Americans who grew up in the same streets that they later chose to patrol as police officers. I spoke with their families, and I told them they were forever in debt for their sacrifices. and will carry on their mission to restore the trust and safety in every community deserves. Like some of you that have been around for a while, I've worked with you on these issues for a long time. I know what works. Investigating crime prevention and community policing, cops who walk the beat, who know the neighborhood, and who can restore trust and safety. Let's not abandon our streets or choose between safety and equal justice. Let's come together and protect our communities, restore trust, and hold law enforcement accountable. That's why the Justice Department has required body cameras, banned chokeholds, and restricted no-knock warrants for its officers. That's why the American Rescue Plan that you all provided $350 billion that cities, states, and counties can use to hire more police, invest in more proven strategies. Proven strategies like community violence interruption, trusted messengers, breaking the cycle of violence and trauma, and giving young people some hope. We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police.
No, it's
It's
all
to fund
lies.
the police.
It's all lies. No, there's McDonald. No.
Fund them with resources and training. Resources and training they need to protect our communities. I ask Democrats and Republicans alike to pass my budget and keep our neighborhoods safe. And we'll do everything in my power to crack down on gun trafficking of ghost guns that you can buy online, assemble at home, no serial numbers, can't be traced. I ask Congress to pass proven measures to reduce gun violence, pass universal background checks. Why should anyone on the terrorist list be able to purchase a weapon? Why? Why? Hey, folks, ban assault weapons with high-capacity magazines hold up to 100 rounds. You think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests? Look, repeal the liability shield that makes gun manufacturers the only industry in America that can't be sued. The only one. Imagine had we done that with the tobacco manufacturers. These laws don't infringe on the Second Amendment. They save lives. The most fundamental right in America is the right to vote and have it counted. And look, it's under assault. In state after state, new laws have been passed. Not only to suppress the vote, we've been there before, but to subvert the entire election. We can't let this happen. Tonight I call on the Senate to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, pass the John Lewis Act, Voting Rights Act. And while you're at it, pass the Disclose Act so Americans know who's funding our election. Look, tonight, I like to honor someone who dedicated his life to serve this country. Justice Breyer, an Army veteran, constitutional scholar, retiring Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Justice Breyer, thank you for your service. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean it. Get up, can't let them see you. Thank you. No matter what your ideology, we all know one of the most serious constitutional responsibility a president has is nominating someone to serve on the United States Supreme Court. As I did 4 days ago, I've nominated the Circuit Court of Appeals, Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of our nation's top legal minds, who continued in Justice Breyer's legacy of excellence. A former top litigator in private practice, a former federal public defender, from a family of public school educators and police officers. She's a consensus builder. Since she's been nominated, she's received a broad range of support, including the Fraternal Order of Police and former judges supported by Democrats and Republicans. Folks, if we're to advance liberty and justice, We need to secure our border and fix the immigration system. And as you might guess, I think we can do both. At our border, we've installed new technology like cutting-edge scanners to better detect drug smuggling. We've set up joint patrols with Mexico and Guatemala to catch more human traffickers. We're putting in place dedicated immigration judges, a significant larger number, so families fleeing persecution and violence can have their cases heard faster, and those who don't legitimately here can be sent back. We're screening, we're securing commitments and supporting partners in South and Central America to host more refugees and secure their own borders. We can do all this while keeping lit the torch of liberty that has led a generation of immigrants to this land, my forebears and many of yours. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, those with temporary status, farm workers, essential workers. Revise our laws so businesses have workers they need and families don't wait decades to reunite. It's not only the right thing to do, it's economically smart thing to do. That's why the immigration reform is supported by everyone from labor unions to religious leaders to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Let's get it done once and for all. Folks, advancing liberty and justice also requires protecting the rights of women. The constitutional right affirmed by Roe v. Wade, standing precedent for half a century, is under attack as never before. If you want to go forward, not backwards, we must protect access to health care, preserve a woman's right to choose, and continue to advance maternal health care for all Americans. And folks, for our LGBTQ plus Americans, let's finally get the Bipartisan Equality Act to my desk. The onslaught of state laws targeting transgender Americans and their families. It's simply wrong. I said last year, especially to our younger transgender Americans, I'll always have your back as your president so you can be yourself and reach your God-given potential. Folks, as I've just demonstrated, while it often appears we do not agree, and that we do agree on a lot more things than we acknowledge. I signed 80 bipartisan bills into law last year. From preventing government shutdowns, to protecting Asian Americans from still too common hate crimes, to reforming military justice, and will soon be strengthening the Violence Against Women Act that I first wrote 3 decades ago. It's important. It's important for us to show the nation we can come together and do big things. Tonight I'm offering a unity agenda for the nation. 4 big things we can do together, in my view. First, beat the opioid epidemic. There's so much we can do. Increase funding for prevention, treatment, harm reduction and recovery. Get rid of outdated rules and stop doctors prescribing treatments. Stop the flow of illicit drugs by working with state and local law enforcement to go after the traffickers. And if you're suffering from addiction, you should know you're not alone. I believe in recovery, and I celebrate the 23 million Americans in recovery. Second, let's take on mental health, especially among our children whose lives and education have been turned upside down. The American Rescue Plan gave schools money to hire teachers and help students make up for lost learning. I urge every parent to make sure your school does just that. They have the money. We can all play a part. Sign up to be a tutor or a mentor. Children were also struggling before the pandemic, bullying, violence, trauma, and the harms of social media. As Frances Haugen, who is here tonight with us, has shown, we must hold social media platforms accountable for the national experiment they're conducting on our children for profit. Folks, thank you. Thank you for the courage you showed. It's time to strengthen privacy protections. Ban targeted advertising to children. Demand tech companies stop collecting personal data on our children. And let's get all Americans the mental health services they need. More people can turn for help, and full parity between physical and mental health care if we treat it that way in our insurance. Look, the third piece of that agenda is support our veterans. Veterans are the backbone and the spine of this country. They're the best of us. I've always believed that we have a sacred obligation to equip those we send to war and care for those in their family when they come home. My administration is providing assistance in job training, housing, and now helping lower-income veterans get VA care debt-free. And our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan have faced many dangers, one being stationed at bases breathing in toxic smoke from burn pits. Many of you have been there. I've been in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan over 40 times. These burn pits that incinerate waste, the waste of war, medical and hazardous material, jet fuel, and so much more. And they come home. Many of the world's fittest and best trained warriors in the world. Never the same. Headaches, numbness, dizziness. A cancer that would put them in a flag-draped coffin. I know. One of those soldiers was my son, Major Bo Biden. I don't know for sure if the burn pit that he lived there, that his hooch was...
Yeah, Joe. Toxic waste burned all across the United States of America, Joe. Putting thousands of Americans in the grave, Joe. With no flag draped over them, Joe. Yeah, Joe. You're morally, ethically, politically bankrupt.
There in Iraq and earlier than that in Kosovo is the cause of his brain cancer, the disease of so many other troops. But I am committed to
help your own people, Joe.
Committed
to help your own. That's what you're committed
like
to.
Danielle Robinson from
Your
Ohio,
own.
the widow of Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson. He was born a soldier, Army National Guard, combat medic in Kosovo and Iraq, stationed near Baghdad, just yards from burn pits the size of football fields. Danielle is here with us tonight.
Right here in the United States,
They
Joe.
love going to Ohio State football
People
games.
exposed to burning medical waste, plastics, toxic fumes all across America, Joe. What did you do about that, Joe? Joe.
They love building Legos with their daughter.
How about Lincoln Logs, Joe?
To burn pits.
Building Lincoln Logs.
Heath's lungs and body. Danielle says Heath was a fighter to the very end.
Liar, liar, Joe.
And neither
Liar,
did she.
Joe.
Through her pain, she found purpose to demand that we do better. Tonight, Danielle, we are going to do better. The VA...
No, you're not. You haven't, and you're not going to do any better. Cherry-picking disaster. Playing prey upon people's personal
I'm
lives.
announcing we're expanding eligibility to
All
veterans
for a really, really, really big shoe.
I'm also calling on Congress to pass a law to make sure veterans devastated by toxic exposure in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Toxic exposure in the United States. How about that, Joe? Joe? Kamala?
And fourth and last, let's end cancer as we know it.
Oh my God. Richard Nixon proposed that. Con Ed listening station.
And to Kamala and so many of you.
License number 11067 ML. Con Ed listening station.
Cancer is the number 2 cause of death in America, second only to heart disease. Last month, I announced the plan to supercharge the cancer moonshot that President Obama asked me to lead 6 years ago.
Oh, there's the one, Obama.
Cancer death rates
Barack.
by at least 50% over the next 25 years. I think we can do better than that.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Turn cancers from death sentences into treatable diseases.
Oh, there's
More
some
support
nice
for patients and their families.
Barack.
There, I call on Congress to
Barack Hussein Obama.
Advanced research
Barack.
projects.
Barack.
Agency for Health.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Pattern after DARPA.
Hussein Obama.
Projects that led in DARPA to the internet. GPS
Oh,
and
DARPA.
so much
Just
more.
what we
Make our
need, Joe.
forces
Thanks,
more
buddy
safer
Joe.
and be able to wage
A
war
cup
more
of Joe from the Joe.
ARPA will have a singular purpose: to drive breakthroughs in cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes.
You are delusional.
A unity agenda for the nation. We can
You
do
delude
these things.
yourself,
It's
Joe.
within our power.
No cup
And I
of
don't
Joe
see a
from you, oh Joe Biden. The Barack Hussein Obama and his West India allies. Yes, take over America.
We've gathered in this sacred space, a citadel of democracy, in this capital. Generation after generation of Americans have debated great questions amid great strife. And have done
I'm
great things.
leaving on a jet plane.
Expanded
Don't
liberty.
know when I'll be back
Debated
again.
totalitarianism and terror. We built the strongest,
Barack.
and most prosperous nation the world has ever known.
Barack Hussein Obama and his West India allies take over America. Everything's free in America.
Of history itself.
Barack.
It is in this moment
Barack Hussein Obama and his West India allies. Let's take over America. Oh, Barack.
Well, I know this nation.
Barack, Joe. You know him really well, don't you, Joe? Joe, cup of Joe Biden.
And we will save democracy. As hard as those times have been, I'm more optimistic about America today than I've been my whole life, because I see the future that's within our grasp, because I know there's simply nothing beyond our capacity. We're the only nation on earth that has always turned every crisis we've faced
Into
an
a fucking
opportunity.
disaster,
The only
Joe.
nation that can be defined by a single word:
Joe, a
possibility.
disaster.
So on this night, on our 245th year as a nation, I've come to report on the state of the nation, the state of the union. And my report is this: the state of the union is strong because
That's
you,
right,
the
Joe.
American people,
Cup of Joe, Joe O. Biden. Barack Hussein Obama and his West India allies. Let's take over America. Everything free in America, Joe. Joe O. Biden. West India allies. Caribbean, man. Go, Joe. Go, Joe, with your Ukrainian counterparts. Yeah, let's gain the internet, Joe. What are you going to do now, Joe? Joe, oh Biden. Oh Biden. Yeah, Irish anarchist, you.
There you have it, President Biden, his first State of the Union address.
No, his second State of the Union address. No, his second State of the Union address, David.
The Russian war in Ukraine.
No Russian war in Ukraine. No, Ukrainians ethnically cleansing Ukrainian Russians. Stop the lies.
Republicans and Democrats
No,
standing up in the room.
Ukrainians ethnically cleansing
The strength of the American people these past
Ukrainian Russians.
He talked about the economy, inflation, acknowledging
Stop lying, David Muir.
among the hardest Americans have
Barack
faced.
Hussein Obama. Barack Hussein Obama.
this, he spent about 11 minutes talking about the situation, Vladimir Putin's
No, not Vladimir Putin.
invasion of Ukraine.
No, Russian Federation forces did not invade Ukraine. No, no, no.
Everyone in that room.
No, stop the lies.
Russians
Stop the lies.
Yeah, David, tonight
Ukrainian
you said you would
Ukrainians
announce that we will
ethnically
join our allies. There
cleansing
are about 36
Ukrainian
countries
Russians.
that have closed
Let's
off airspace,
stop
but we
lying
will now
about
close
it.
off American airspace to all
Let's
Russian
get
flights,
Volodymyr
further
Zelensky out of
isolating
America.
Russia, he said. We also learned tonight that Boeing will suspend
No, you're
parts,
wrong.
maintenance, and technical
Wrong
advice
again.
to Russians. This
You're
is
still
also
wrong.
a major blow.
2 years later, and there's no more truth in this address than there was 2 years ago. On February 28, 2022, 6th day, oh, there's Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. No smile on
Chairman
his
of the Joint
face,
Chiefs, Mr. Milley there,
because
General
he
Milley.
knows the truth.
And thinking about the Ukrainian ambassador,
He
who
knows
was the
the
guest
truth.
of the First Lady Jill Biden.
He knows the
and Mark, and
truth.
everybody here in this room, and everybody at home watching,
Yeah,
thinking
he
about
knows
the
the
Ukrainian
truth.
people
Barack
tonight.
Hussein
He
Obama
talked
and
about
his
standing
West
up defending
India
NATO
allies.
countries, Republicans, Democrats
Let's
standing
take
up and
over
applauding that
America.
notion.
It should
So
be
many are
simple.
wondering, how does this
And
end?
Corinne LaPierre, the princess of the Caribbean and Queens, is here to help us out. Thank you, Corinne. Corinne LaPierre. Thank you, Corinne. Princess Corinne. Oh, we love our princess. Our princess Corinne LaPierre.
And the administration officials I have spoken to feel that Russia absolutely will crush Ukraine. So the Ukrainian people watching that ambassador so emotional for
Ukrainian
her people
Ukrainians
because what we are
ethnically
seeing is the
cleansing Ukrainian
destruction of
Russians,
Ukraine.
not
And
Russian
despite all the
Federation
unity,
troops
despite the
invading
sanctions,
Ukraine.
this is going to happen anyway.
They're still
according to
lying
most
2 years later. I
Reality
can't
they face
believe
on the
it.
ground in Ukraine.
Not
The
Tim
president shaking
Waters.
hands in that
Yeah,
room.
they're all
Lindsay Davis,
liars.
so different from a year ago when
They're
only
all
200
liars.
people were invited for his joint address to Congress. He had just been elected, but now his first State of the
just been
Union, a
elected.
year later, no masks in the room,
No, this is
shaking hands, and he
2022.
did pivot fairly quickly after
It's his
Ukraine and the
second
economy, acknowledging
congressional
the
address.
pain in this country.
And
Oh,
I'm
my
struck by
God.
also during that last time that he addressed the
Oh,
joint Congress,
Lord,
he
Lord.
talked
2
about how he
years
had
on,
inherited
still
a
the
nation in
same
crisis.
lies.
And in many ways, we're still in a crisis
No,
just for different
ethnic
reasons. But he
cleansing
did
in
make that big
Ukraine.
announcement right off the top about
Volodymyr
the 60
Zelensky
million barrels of oil. He's
persecuting
been
the
working
Russian
with 30
Ukrainians
countries to build a release
and
that
cleansing
certainly
them
that's going
out
to be
of
celebrated by
Ukraine.
Americans.
Not
And then he ticked
Russian
off a number of other
Federation,
successes,
not
right?
Vladimir
Creation of
Putin.
6
No,
million
that's
jobs since
all
he
a
took office.
PR lie
Unemployment
inside
now
the
at
United States of
4%,
America.
$1 trillion
They know
infrastructure
better
bill.
than the rest of the
But
world.
when we go to our ABC News
Here
Washington
they
Post
still are
poll,
telling the
issue
same lie
singularly
over and
that's at
over
the top of the
again. I'm
minds of
watching it
Americans
right
is
here live.
inflation. 59% of Americans saying they're feeling that hardship at home. And I think that he was very
Hardship?
successful in being able to
Yeah.
talk about and channel
Let
his inner
everybody
Bill
that
Clinton
doesn't
with, I
belong
feel
here get
your
the
pain,
F
talking
out and
that
go where they
Scranton
belong.
Joe. And it just remains to be seen if he gave enough assurances for Americans with the
Deportation on
checklist
the
that
way.
he provided as far as possible solutions.
And if they see real change at the
When
checkout
Donald
in the
J.
weeks and
Trump
months to
becomes
come,
President of the United
President
States
Biden
come
with
November, it's
Justice
a
Stephen Breyer, of
guarantee.
course,
A
retiring.
lead pipe
The
sink.
president talking about his historic
Look at
nominee,
this.
Judge
2
Ketanji
years
Brown
ago, this
Jackson,
is broadcast
who
to
he
the
nominated to the
world.
nation's highest court, the first black woman ever
These lies.
nominated for the role. She stood
They're
before the
still
nation
telling
last
the
week in
same
the middle
lie.
of all of the other news
2
around the
years
world
on.
for that extraordinary and
There's no
historic moment.
redemption.
She's the daughter of 2 public school teachers. Her father then
That's
became a lawyer
lovely.
himself,
She's a great
serving as a
justice.
lawyer for the same school board where he was a
Congratulations,
teacher.
Ketanji.
She begins her rounds tomorrow on Capitol Hill, and
Where's
we're
that
joined by
from?
our congressional correspondent, Rachel Scott. Rachel, she'll get a chance to meet some key senators tomorrow.
Who's there?
She
There's that
will,
same
and that
lady.
will start with Republican
The
leader
one that
Mitch
walks him
McConnell right
around
there
like
in the
he's a
Senate.
puppy
She'll also
dog.
meet with Senate
And
Majority
there's the
Leader
man that walks
Chuck
around.
Schumer
The two
as
of them
well.
walking
This
around
comes
like
at a
he's a
time
puppy dog.
when the president, obviously on the
foot must
heels
still
of just
hold on.
nominating Judge
Great.
Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first black woman in our nation's history, 233 years to be nominated to the Supreme Court. But of course, she
But don't
faces a
forget
very
about the first
tough
black
confirmation battle ahead. The Senate is split 50-50 though, and
The first
Democrats
Jewish
do
president.
have the votes to be able to confirm him on their own without any Republican support, David.
As you mentioned, Rachel, they hope to have her confirmed by Easter We thought earlier that perhaps the president would get down that aisle fairly quickly at the top of his address, which he did, but take his time on the backside. We know this president well from his time as vice president and senator for many years before that. I want to get right over to our roundtable.
They're not Secret Service either. Oh well, so much for all that. So much for all that. It's a beautiful morning. It's early. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus.